let's talk about other recovery mechanisms you can do after your run. So, I'm in a hot bath right now because I took a recovery run today and I find them to be very relaxing and pleasant. Also, it's very cold outside and I'm going to go to sleep soon. So, I thought it'd be a nice way of getting my body temperature down. Fun fact, hot baths decrease your internal body temperature. And when that body temperature goes down, especially when it transitions from higher to lower, that is when you get tired because it has essentially it lines up with how like the temperature outside would affect your body. It's a evolutionary thing, but whatever. So let's talk about 3 great techniques for run recovery. The first is something you've heard from 1,000 different people 1,000 different times in your life. It's stretching. Now, I feel like most people don't stretch before and after a run, and to be quite frank, you don't always need to stretch before and after a run. There's a lot of mixed evidence on stretching. I recommend, especially when you start, to always stretch after your run. And if you can, stretch before your run too, just to warm up. But stretching after is where I feel like I really help my recovery. So one of the reasons that people often don't stretch is because it takes a long time. And I would say the same thing I say with everything else for things that you have to work up towards or things that might seem a little inconvenient at first to get used to. Start very small. Get a fixed routine of stretches that does not change. Do it the same amount of time every day and do it, for a short period of time. If you do not have to think about what you're going to do, you can do it automatically. If there are no decisions made during your stretching, then it becomes much, much easier. If it's a short enough period of time where you're okay sitting or standing there without, doing other stuff, then that will make it bearable. And so stretching will then become a very natural and easy part of your recovery. So thing 1 is stretching, of course. Thing 2 is foam rolling. Foam rolling is one of the best recovery techniques of all time. It's absolutely amazing what foam rolling can actually do for you. It's one of the few things that's shown to be basically as good as massage, right? It's self-massage to some extent, but it also feels really good, I'm just saying this from like a straight up like pleasure standpoint. Foam rolling feels amazing, especially when you get deep in there into those muscles that are starting to get a little sore. So doing that, adding that tension and that pressure really helps reduce the amount of soreness you'll have after a hard run, helps you recover faster, helps you get injured less, be more, resilient, robust to injury. So foam rolling is huge. Foam rolling and stretching are always great. And the third thing is, of course, if you did a recovery run, take a hot bath. If you did a faster hard run, take a cold bath. And if you don't have time for a bath, take a contrast shower, which is switching from hot to cold. Other things that I'd like to do after running is, of course, eat. Make sure you get some food in you right away. Your body is basically has usually expended glycogen reserves in basically glycogen that is stored in between your muscles. For those of you who don't know, imagine energy stores in 3 stages. Glucose, which is sugar, which is very accessible energy, can be broken down almost directly into, let's say, energy and or action. Glycogen, which is which can be broken down into glucose, and fat, which can be broken down into glycogen. So these are the 3 stages of energy storage. So to convert fat into energy, you need to go fat to glycogen, glycogen to glucose, and glucose to energy. To convert glucose into fat, you need to go glucose to glycogen, glycogen to fat, etc. Now there's different types of fat. We have brown fat, white fat. Some fat is like warming for your body. Some is used during thermogenesis. Some is good for you. Some is not. A lot of stuff we can talk about there. But specifically, let's talk about glycogen. It is a molecule that is stored very in high. It's primarily stored in your muscles themselves, and so they're basically close to where they are needed. And when you start running, oftentimes when your body needs more energy, it will go to the glycogen in those muscles and start breaking them down and converting them to glucose. So after you run, you have essentially this glycogen debt that you need to pay. And you might be thinking, well, if I just don't eat, won't my body just convert fat into glycogen and then store that in my muscles? The truth is, no, it actually doesn't do that. What it'll end up doing is other dumb stuff. It basically, your body becomes better at making fat as well when you do this kind of starvation response. So the important part about losing weight while running, if you're looking to decrease basically if you want to decrease body fat and things like that, is that you want a lot of the gains to come from an increase in your basal metabolic rate, your BMR. So when you start running, your body in general starts burning more calories throughout the day. And this is something we've all heard before. The run itself typically does about 100 calories per mile. That's typically how much you'll burn. So it's not really that much. It's not really as much as you would think, you know? So the big gains that come from running come from the increased appetite of your body throughout the day while you're awake and asleep. So that's why you want to make sure that you still have balanced meals while you're doing this. And so one of the interesting things is, so I did intermittent fasting for a while I was running. And one of the really interesting things with fasting and fasted runs are, it's actually proven that your body will break down fat faster if you take fasted runs, but it will also build up fat a lot faster. So essentially, you don't really, you don't have any overall benefit besides being really hungry while you run and having less energy to run with when you do have fasted runs. And so typically, the what I've kind of discerned from it is a fasted run, if it's less than 10 minutes, is okay. Anything more than 10 minutes, you'll actually be doing more harm than you're doing good. So that's a little tip about that. We were talking about fat, glycogen, glucose, metabolism, base metabolic rate. Make sure that you keep eating quite regularly when you are running. Your appetite will go up, and you should also increase how much you eat. But if you were trying to lose weight, add a calorie deficit, and if you're not, then eat as much as as you're hungry for, right? So I think a lot of times people will do one or the other. They will diet or exercise, which is which is tough, because dieting without exercise leads to a lot of muscle loss and decreased energy, lower BMR. Essentially, you're kind of just not as awake, aware, and energetic all the time. And exercise without diet just leads to you also binge eating and eating a lot. And so oftentimes you'll bulk up and or get to a habit of eating a lot more, which may continue even after you stop exercising. So there's a lot of it's very easy to go wrong with diet and exercise, with changing body composition and all of this stuff, because it's hard to do this very simple thing, which is do both diet and exercise. Because a lot of it is really just about self-control and creating habits, and that shit is hard. That shit can be really, really, really hard. And oftentimes, if you don't have the right tools and you haven't set your system up, or you have unrealistic expectations, things will just get, you won't get there, right? You'll get discouraged, etc. So anyways, let's go back to what we were talking about. Eat after you run. Eat after you run. Remember that. It shouldn't be hard to remember, because you'll be hungry. I usually just throw a handful of nuts and a little bit of fruit in my mouth right after I eat, and then I throw my clothes in. Oh, sorry. Let's call this thing 4. Reset. So to recover from a run, you need to really do 4 things. 1 is eat. 2 is stretch. 3 is foam roll. We'll say stretch/foam roll, because stretching and foam rolling are very similar, and you don't need to do both all the time and whatever, but stretch and foam roll. Shower, right? Shower and kind of clean yourself, because you'd be sweaty, dirty, and gross. And the 4th is reset. That means get all the things that you used while running back to where they started, so that you can use them again the next day or the same day. The main thing is that at the end of the process, it should be you just finished a cycle. There should never be a little hanging part. I had a friend who would go to the gym, and then he would take his gym clothes and he'd put them in a bag, and he'd tie the bag up and put it in a corner and say, I'm going to wash those someday. And he would just keep buying more gym clothes, and he would have dozens of bags of the most foul-smelling gym clothes, all over his room. It was actually just so wonderfully stupid that I actually adore this silly habit that this person had. But you can't maintain that, and it becomes very, very difficult if there's that little hanging chad that adds up over and over until now you're off your cycle. If you can start back if you can reset, then you will set yourself up to start the activity again the next time quickly. I have a rule: if there's something that you want to do regularly, make it so that you can do it within 30 seconds. You can start doing it within 30 seconds. And that is an arbitrary number for things that are important to me, I get that number down. So I'm a coder. I like to code, and one of the things that happens is sometimes you'll have an idea for a project or something that you just like a little sketch of a thing you want to create, and if you don't do it right then and there in the next 3 to 5 minutes, you're gonna lose it. You're gonna forget about it. It's gonna be gone. This kind of crystallized solution that has popped into your mind. If you can't get it down onto paper and have it exist, you're not gonna be able to do it. And when you add that slight barrier, that little bit of extra time and extra effort before you can do the activity that you really want, i.e., like create or unlock value, then you do it way less. And then you learn to not do things like to not be reactive, not to do things immediately. And speed, at the end of the day, I think is one of the most important aspects of being able to adapt and to have success in really anything. Speed of adapting and learning and all that kind of shit. So make sure the barrier to entry to anything you want to do is very, very low. If you're a musician, you should be able to start playing something in 10 seconds, right? That might mean that your piano should always be plugged in, or your guitar should always be like ready and set up, and you just need to flip a switch to do it, or like that you should have an actual physical instrument in your home or a place where you spend time. So for me, that means always having a dev environment set up that I can like go and do my primary language with for anything I want, et cetera, et cetera. But it's not like that right now, I'm suffering from it. I know that it makes it really difficult for me to do a lot of the projects that I want to do. Anyways, that's completely unrelated. But for running, I have my running clothes hanging up literally right next to my door, and the running shoes right underneath them. And I put the socks that I used to run right there as well. And so when I go run, I literally take off my clothes, I put them on a bench, I put on these clothes right next to my door, and I walk out the door. Then I run, I come back, I throw my clothes in the laundry. Yes, I have a laundry machine. I live in New York. I am very privileged, I know. And then I stretch and eat. Sorry, it's usually eat, undress, stretch, shower, and then get back to life, So you have to be able to reset. And again, these are all suggestions. Like, if you think these are dumb, then don't do them. I'm just like saying this is stuff that's worked for me. This is stuff that like you could do. This is stuff that I think is a good idea. And also I'm talking about running, but I'm also not talking about running. I'm talking about anything in general. Make it so that you reset. When I cook, I try to make sure that I reset at the end of every cycle, meal, end of the day, whatever, because if you can get back to the start and start fresh every time you want to get there, like, if you walk into a dirty kitchen, you're not gonna, it's gonna be way harder to cook something. You're like, man, I gotta wash my fucking dishes before I can cook anything. But if you walk into a clean kitchen, then cooking will be much easier, right? And so that's how you encourage these types of habits that you want. Barrier to entry should be small. If you don't want to watch TV anymore, if you want to stop watching as much TV, take the batteries out of your remote and put them whatever. Unplug your TV. Make it harder for you to do the thing. So these are pretty commonly, these tips are pretty commonly found. I think the TV remote is from Atomic Habits, but this entire set of things we'll call environment design. Design your environment to encourage the behaviors that you want. Okay, cool. Thank you for joining me on this bathtub edition, and take care.